That's why we got involved. We thought that people were trying to rewrite history, as Bill Bagley said. They're trying to rewrite the history. Well, the people that made it are still alive. From the very beginning, it was a special kind of pork. Originally, it was considered to be around 55,000 acres. Well, 20,000 acres of it were in ranch lands that were going to be kept in ranch lands with the oyster farm in the middle. I called John Burton. He and I were in the Congress together 30 years ago in the 70s. I said, John, I don't remember. I supported your bill to make this wilderness. I don't remember that we were trying to wipe out the oyster farm. He said, absolutely not. When Burton assured me that it had not been his intent and sent me his testimony, it's clear that if you're looking at congressional intent, you go to the authors of the bill. It's a unique pork, but it was created and funded on the basis that those ranches and the oyster farm would continue.
Now, if you saw one mistake, you'd say, well, okay, you might say sloppy use of data. But the fact is now we're seeing mistake after mistake after mistake. Misuse of data after misuse of data after misuse of data. And it's always with the same sign. It's always finding environmental harm where none exists. Those numbers, it winds up, that were being attributed to Drake Sestero came from a different species of oyster off the coast of Japan in completely different waters in a paper published in 1955. It winds up, the eelgrass in Drake Sestero is so lush, it's doubled in its acreage in the 10 years before that. And guess what? Another master student, Jesse Weschler, had studied the fish, and the fish were thriving. They had incredible diversity, and the fish were in great shape. So they had taken a paper from 1955 from halfway around the world, and they hadn't just said, well, let's look at what happens in Japan. They had taken those numbers and claimed those were numbers from Drake Sestero today in 2000. At that time, it was 2007. They said that Kevin Lunny and his workers were doing such incredible harm to the harbor seals that this was a national emergency, and that they had evidence that one area, the number of seals was down by 80%. And so I did something that, as an academic scientist, I had never done before. I filed a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request. They invoked Exemption 5, deliberative process privilege. Sorry, we can't give you the data, and we can't answer your questions. And the senator turned to Mary Bohmeyer, and they were on first-name basis, and said, Mary, don't you agree? Dr. Goodman is going to get this data, isn't he? When I got that data 2 weeks later, it was clear that there actually had been an 80% decline at a location. That location was in the wilderness area. That location was far, far away from the oysters. That location, it's a long story, but the sandbar had become connected to the mainland, and both hikers, i.e., one source of problems, human beings, as well as coyotes and other predators, were getting across and chasing them away. And there was no such decline anywhere near the oyster farm.